Hello, everyone. Nice to see you, everybody.
I think we're going to be a good sized meeting tonight.
It may very well be a good-sized meeting. So if you know family members or friends who are going to miss this, let them know. We'll record it and make it available on ASA TV shortly. We will be doing a couple things just because of the amount of content that we have for you and the number of people presenting. We're going to shut the chat off until we get to kind of like the open discussion Q&A section. So please do take notes if you have questions that come up at any point. This will allow us to kind of get through the content and not do what I am notorious for doing, which is look at the chat box and then go off script and answer the question. Yes. So I definitely want to be able to answer questions. We all do, but we want to make sure we kind of can share our content and then kind of take it from there. So there will still be room, in time for questions. And it just will be a little bit different. It won't be free flowing in the middle of our presentation. And then the other thing is we noticed we had a decent turnout at our board meeting last night, and but we had a setting where people could unmute themselves, and by accident or on purpose, there would just be random times when people were unmuting themselves, and it made it a little tougher, for the discussions to be heard by everybody. So we've also changed the setting to where, other than staff, folks will stay muted for now. And then again, once we get to the Q&A, we'll change that. We hope that just makes for an easier listening and viewing experience for you all. And that's why those things might just look a little different. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. We know this is the front of everybody's minds, and so we wanted to be able to kind of update you as much as possible as we are inching closer to the start of the school year. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to switch over to slides, and then we'll take it from there. So thank you, team, staff who's on here, Ms. Campagna, Ms. Valenta, I know Mr. Shipes is on here. I saw that Ms. Ronslam's on here. I know Ms. Okamoto's on here. I know there are others, and I just might be missing you. I see Ms. Margarita and all staff, and then of course all families. Great to connect with you at this time. All right, give me one moment so I can share the screen. Okay. So good evening, and thank you to our rolling out of our reopening plans for the 2020-2021 school year. For our new families, welcome Dr. Cognetta, the CEO of Allegiance Team Academy, proud CEO. In our founding years, I was the CEO/principal. We're growing from 480 students in our first year to 810 this coming year. And a school of that size in the charter world really needs a site-focused, day-to-day instructional leader in the role of principal. So as many of you know, Ms. Lohoff, who's on here, who taught in middle grades and now is our principal. She hasn't taken the day off. She's been working really hard as she's transitioned to principal. She'll be facilitating a bit of the content tonight. So, oh, cool! Someone was able to draw on our whiteboard. Always learn a new feature. That's great. It might have been me. I don't know. So we'll jump in, get into the content, and then we'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A as best we can. And again, you'll hear from different team members as we kind of go on. So as you can see, we kind of have a hefty agenda there. What we'll roll through as far as content tonight is we'll talk a little bit about what's not necessarily new information, but what was a board adopted last night in regards to what drives our kind of reopening plan. And so I'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of zoom in, and Ms. Lohoff will take us through the learning models. These are not new. There's been some updates too. If you've been following, you'll see some updates for two reasons. One is the hard work that the team has put into coming up with the learning models, and then the other reason is guidance, legislation is fast moving. And so while we've been developing plans and something new will come down the pipe from the county, from the state, from the governor, or from the legislature. So as these things happen, we have to go back and dust off the plans and see if they're still compliant, if they're still appropriate, they're still matching, requirements and so on. So you're seeing the latest updates tonight, and anything and everything that we are sharing remains subject to change. And again, you've heard me say this before, and if that's the case, if something has to change, we're going to do our best to get it out to you guys as soon as possible. So then as you see, we kind of drilled down because the hybrid model, which again, making no assumptions of anyone on here, a hybrid model entails half the kids being at school at a time. So some of our students would be on campus for a few of the days while the others are home, and then it switches. Because that model represents the largest shift from anything we've done, that one is where we're sharing a little bit more detail and so on. Ms. Weinstock will share some of the important component that we're focusing in on regarding social emotional learning and how that will look across the school. Ms. Lohoff and I will talk a little bit about supports. It's a very important question, at this time, is how our students who require additional support other than what we provide in the core for all students, what does that look like? And we won't peel back all the layers there, but know that tons of work by Dr. Moreno and Ms. Lohoff and the team have been underway to make sure that students are being supported appropriately. Then we'll look at a little bit of kind of the logistics of what being on campus will entail. And we do have a call for some donations. We've been pretty aggressively looking for PPE and masks and sanitizer, and the list goes on of things that are needed to bring 800 students to and from school every day. So we are we're securing some of our own PPE, but there's also some areas where we could use some help. So Ms. Lohoff will talk a little bit about that, as well as our partner for before and after school care Think Together. And then I'll share a little bit about next steps. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, I'll kind of send you towards a guidebook. It's about a 12-page document, not too overwhelming, pretty dense, but not too dense. So that's kind of the way the night goes. And then we do want to leave some time for some Q&A. I don't know, really no way of gauging how that goes. So at one point we'll just have a hard stop and say, yeah, let's follow up with questions elsewhere. We know that, there will be questions that pertain to all families, and then some that are unique for one. And that might be a better setting than, in a large open forum like this for more individualized questions. So, but know that we're very interested in making sure you get the answers to your questions. We're in that same boat. We have questions and we want answers as well. So let's talk a little bit about what our board approved last night. Again, for some of you, this is repeat information. There's only been nuance changes. It's largely been consistent with what we've been looking to do for some time in regards to reopening, and it's consistent, very much parallel to our authorizer, Chino Valley. And the reason for that is we're in the same community. We're dealing with the same implications of COVID for, for our schools. So it makes sense that we're more aligned than not. Now, we won't be identical to Chino Valley. They won't be identical to us. We run different programs, but from a bird's eye view, we'll be pretty aligned in regards to what we're offering. And so what was adopted last night was that there are 3 potential models for reopening. Those models happen to be tied to the governor's or California's resilience roadmap. This roadmap is not specific to schools. It's the roadmap for reopening the economy at large, right? We know just yesterday, we essentially have seen a rollback in reopening. And so it won't be too long before we see the stages. We've been kind of encouragingly inching towards into stage 3. I think the writing's on the wall that we'll probably be regressing back based on those actions and so on. So the stages are largely driven by criteria tied to COVID cases, and then they describe the type of workplaces then that are appropriate, right, for our governor and so on to be opened. So little, as you can imagine, is open in stage 1, essential workers, as defined by our state government. And then stage 2 is when you start to see, an opening of other low risk work environments. Schools are largely considered low risk if they take certain measures, right? And a lot of our work that affects your day-to-day potentially is tied to those measures. And then stage 3 obviously is gradually moving towards more and more openings, and stage 4 is as normal as we can kind of, define at this time, or identify at this time, with just about everything reopening in a fairly familiar fashion. So what school looks like on August 10th is tied to the stages that not necessarily the state is in as a whole, not even the county really, but more really what Western San Bernardino County looks like. And again, Western San Bernardino County, the Inland Empire, and the west side of the Inland Empire, the Chino Valley, does look different than other parts of San Bernardino County. So our job is to look at the guidance for our local area, because our local, environment may differ from other parts of the county and naturally of other parts of the state. So that's a lot. It's a bit of information, but none of this so far is radically different than what we've shared before. It is now board adopted, which gives us kind of a framework on how to make decisions around what school looks like based on these stages. Because hybrid and traditional do entail kids coming to school either every day of the week or for several days of the week, then we also have the home-based option available for students in either of those models. It's not available if we're in distance learning, because this means everybody's home. So you don't need to choose a home option if the entire school is home. The home-based learning option is one for when kids are in school, and it doesn't make sense for your child to be at school. And those are family decisions. There's state legislative criteria on what is allowable, but essentially that law is really clearly interpreted as, if your family doesn't feel safe sending their kid to school, they don't have to give up the spot in that school. They don't have to disenroll or anything. The school has to offer a home-based option to all of them. And so we've created that, which you'll hear a little bit more about. So, and to share a little bit, that is kind of a step back from our adopted model now. And one of the hardest things that the staff has had to do is keep your children's safety and their education at the forefront of their decisions around what returning to school looks like, when we're getting sometimes contradictory guidance. Sometimes we're receiving information guidance that we pull our hair out and don't understand how we're supposed to make that happen for kids. And again, so to try to find this balance of health and safety with optimizing learning, teaching your kids, we found plenty of instances where those things are hard to match up. So any of our plans are our team's best effort to meet that balance of educating your children while following health and safety guidance. That's the tension, and it's not easy work. And part of it that doesn't sit well with me, and you can hear the discomfort in my voice probably, is I've never wanted to be in a position where I'm making decisions that affect what your household looks like, right? And now we know that that's what's happening. When we are telling you as your child's school that we will be in either one of these models, that's a kind of decision that affects your home, right? Your child is at home for part or all of the day, and that has very real implications. This is the stuff that that I stress over, that overwhelms me, and we're doing our best to make sure that what you signed on for, why you signed on to Allegiance, is what you're getting. We know these times call for pretty intensive measures, and we've not lost sight of that. So I just want you to know that, and we feel the same concern, frustration, and desire to just be back to what we all came to Allegiance for a school that's 5 days a week, optimizing learning from 8 to 3 every day of the week for your kids. That's what our staff signed on for. That's what I've been a part of from the beginning. That's what you signed on for. Trust me, we are motivated to get there. It's where we want to be. We also have to obviously be mindful of the guidelines regarding health and safety. That's the context in which you're finding us today. So thank you for understanding that and knowing that this team will continue to find the best ways to educate your child, regardless of what is required of us. So we're going to take a deep dive now into the models. One thing I'll kind of, not to Ms. Lohoff, not to give away the end of the movie, but one thing I want you to notice as she shares the details of each of the different models is that there are things that are constant and true across each of our models. So look for that as she shares the details. And I think I need to unmute her because of my mute setting. So give me a moment and I will unmute her. And I believe.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Let's present that again.
All right.
Take it away.
Hello, everyone. So one of the first models of academic learning that you saw was the distance learning. And I want to first off thank the team because, as Dr. Cognetta has indicated, they've been working since pretty much since school got out. They got their classrooms straightened up. We got ready to make a giant move as we were adding new students to ASA. And since then, we've been working as a team, and I couldn't be any more grateful. As we're going through these 3 different models, I want you to notice that the difference lies within the definition of what that model is. We are already committed to everything that I will take you through here on this page. And these things remain consistent throughout all of the models. I will not be discussing the traditional model at this point because we all know what ASA traditional model looks like. The only variation would be whatever the county health department tells us what we need to modify to be in traditional. Other than that, we're pretty sure that we're going to fall within one of these models. So this is what we're presenting this evening. So distance learning. It is instruction in which the student and the teacher are in different locations. Our hope is that with students learning at home, even though it will be somewhat like the distance learning that we had in the spring, there are several differences as well. So our hope is that teachers, though, will be able to come into their classrooms and teach from their classrooms so that that engaging environment is at least seen and that students can connect with their teacher differently than when all teachers had to be in their own little places in their homes teaching in the spring. Students will be under the general supervision of a certificated teacher in which they are assigned. So let's take a look. In opening stages in 1, 2A, and 2B, this would be distance learning, and it's a school-wide basis. Everybody, if we're in distance learning, everybody's in distance learning. And this is as a result of an order or guidance from the state and local health officers. Instruction is aligned to grade level standards at a level of quality and intellectual challenge that is substantially equivalent to in-person instruction. All students are provided devices and whatever needs they may have to connect if they are not available in their home. And that is so that we can provide adequate participation in the educational program. All students will be required to complete assigned work that is provided by the certificated classroom teacher. And I'm going to highlight a couple of those reasons. Number one, unlike the no harm that took place in grading during the latter spring of last year, students are going to be graded now moving forward. So as of August 10th, grading begins. It will be, teachers will grade with accuracy and with integrity. Instruction will include academic and other supports for all of the following. Students that are not performing at grade level, we have a game plan for intervention and accommodations for that, supports for that. As far as special education students and their related services that are required per their IEPs, the necessary accommodations will be in place. English language learner education will continue. Students that may be in foster care or are homeless, there are supports in place for that. And students that would require mental health supports. And we do absolutely understand the anxiety and the transition concerns that a student may be experiencing because this is out of the norm for them. Instruction in this model will include daily live lessons so that there is interaction with the certificated teachers. And that is direct from Assembly Bill 98. Daily participation and attendance is documented. Now, over in the distance learning, I want to remind you that that little green box over on the right-hand side of your screen, home-based learning is not available if the school is in distance learning. And as Dr. Cognetta stated, it is because everyone is home. Dr. Cognetta, you can move me forward and stop drawing on my screen.
What's it mean? I don't know who's on there doing that. I don't even know how to do that. So
take the crayon out of your hand. Yeah. Okay, so hybrid learning is the next one that we're talking about that is so foreign. It is the one that lies between the distance learning that we're familiar with and our traditional classroom. Hybrid learning is a combined traditional classroom experience along with digital and virtual academic daily instruction. We will engage students through two cohorts. A and B is what we've labeled them. Each cohort attends in-class instruction 2 days weekly, thereby alternating with a virtual live class schedule. So just as I indicated, there has to be person-to-person instruction. This is where this comes in the hybrid as well. Even if your student is at home on the other day of the alternating day of their cohort, there will be live lessons to some extent so that connection with the teacher is consistent. Fridays are reserved at this point for intervention, small group instruction. There will be enrichment classes. And I would like to guarantee to you right now, ASA is really well known, and because of our enrichment courses that are offered and the amazing opportunities that the kids are offered, these will continue. We have not cut any part of our program as far as coursework or enrichment offerings are concerned. Again, now I'm going to take you quickly through, because you've seen these, and I will explain why this is so very important. Stages 2B or 3 is where we open up here. And that would be 2B moving into 3. If we're just now entering 2B, we're at the tail end of distance learning. We have to be well on our way into 3 for hybrid learning to take place. Again, this is a result of an order or guidance from the state or local public health officers. Again, instruction is aligned to grade level standards. Guarantee that to our students. All students are provided with devices and the opportunity to connect. All students will be required to complete assigned work that comes from their certificated classroom teacher. All students will be graded, again, with accuracy and integrity. The same academic supports that were offered in distance learning are offered in hybrid learning, and daily participation and attendance will be documented. So you may be asking yourself, well, what is the difference in those 2 programs? The difference is in the definition. Hybrid means it's a little bit of both. Distance means it's totally at home. Now, the green reminder over on the right side of your screen this time is that home-based learning is available as an alternate option for the hybrid learning program. If you are a parent who would prefer your student not come to school for whatever reason, 2 days a week and learn from home 2 days a week, you have the option to go ahead and select the home-based learning, which would put you in a very similar distance learning model. You can go ahead and advance me, Dr. Cognetta. So the home-based learning model, here is the definition of that. The home-based learning model provides the virtual and the digital live academic daily instruction. This is the option that I was speaking of, where students are enrolled by parent choice. Now, at each trimester, I will qualify that with you in a few moments. At the trimester, students who are enrolled in this program have the option to transition to a hybrid learning model or a traditional model if it's available. Students do have daily face-to-face instruction with their certificated grade level appropriate teacher. Fridays are again reserved for the same content as in the other 2 models. What I want to make sure that we understand is, let me give you a scenario. So a student is not ready to come to school in a hybrid learning model, and parent has chosen home-based learning. That choice is for the trimester. At the end of the trimester, or when the trimester changes to the next, you would have an option of then moving your child from home-based learning into hybrid or traditional, whichever the case may be. In the event a student becomes ill, or a parent decides that a hybrid or a traditional model is not working, they do not have to wait till the end of the trimester to make the choice to take them out of the hybrid or traditional learning program and put them in home-based. You have that option at any time during the trimester. Part of the reason for us making sure that this doesn't go back and forth is because if you notice all of the criteria for a home-based learning program, again, it's available to you during hybrid or traditional. It's aligned to the grade level standards. The students all have devices. They all have to complete their work. They are graded with accuracy and integrity. The supports are all in place, and the daily participation and attendance is documented. Now, the reason why all of the criteria is consistent between those 3 models is because at any time, if we are told that we have to change our direction, we are able, we lose no ground. There are no gaps. The learning and the teaching are consistent between the 3 models. And that's what the team has been working really, really hard on, so that we have a full year of academic planning taking place. Standards per grade level are intact. Okay, you can take me to the next one. And I think that may be the end of mine. There you go.
Ms. Lohoff, which did you need me to press on? And
I need you to go ahead and press on the daily. These are samples of the hybrid schedules. And please make sure you, parents and guests, the word sample is the operative word here. We asked the team so that you would have kind of an understanding of how a daily schedule may look. we've asked our teams to go ahead and take a look and present to you this evening some of the examples they've brought up. So these are not set in stone. These are only what possibly could look like. They are, of course, going to be flexible and appropriate to that grade and those classrooms. So the first one presenting would be Mrs. Valenta. And then as we move forward for grades 1 and 3, Mrs. Laza will follow up. And you may have to unmute her.
I believe. Ms. Valenta, you've been asked to unmute. You should be able to do it now.
There we go. We hear me now? Okay, perfect. Hello, good evening, everyone. So as Mrs. Ohoff stated, this is our hybrid sample daily schedule. Very exciting to even be working on this. As you all know, we want our students in our classroom. We want to be able to be there with them. So if we're able to do that safely and we're in a hybrid situation, this is kind of what a day in life would look like for a TK or K student. So we have a cohort A and a cohort B. So the cohort A, when they attend when they are in class, we will go through our morning routine. Calendar is a very big deal in kindergarten and TK. So we will be doing that. What we have come up with is an interactive calendar notebook so that the students would be able to take that to and from home. So the days that they are home, like in cohort B, we will be putting our morning routine in our Google Classroom, and the students could work on that interactive notebook at home. And then following that is really what our focus on. A lot of focus is on our phonics and reading and phonemic awareness. During that time of cohort A, in class, we will be going over everything, and the cohort B would be, if they're able to tune in to a phonics live lesson. With 2 of us teachers in the classroom, we're able to manage that fairly easy. And if they're unable to watch it during that time, it will be recorded and in the Google Classroom for them to follow that day. They will have a skills practice book that will be going to and from class. So when they are in class, they will bring that with them, and then it will completely go home with them every day. So you'll be able to see what they did in class and what they need to do when they are at home. Students, when they are in class, is where we're really going to kind of focus on those center activities. And we have already been thinking of great hands-on activities that will be able to clean and sanitize really well for the next group of kids to go on that. But we don't want to take those activities away from kindergarten. We want to make sure when they are with us, we're able to do those safely. As you see, we left time for our social studies, which is really kind of a paper social studies weekly that we do a lot of their comprehension reading with that. And students will be taking one of those home every day as well. And I'm going to ask you to scroll down, Dr. Cognetta. We have time in there for our snacks, because that's very important in kindergarten, as well as our enrichments. We will have one enrichment every day. Oh, not a little bit too much. Okay. A little bit down. Thank you. A little bit more up. We want to see math.
There you go.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you. And then also our time for math. It's the same thing. We have a workbook that students will be taking to and from school every day. We will be front loading lessons for students that are going to be going. So cohort A will get front loaded before their next lessons that they will do at home. And the same thing as cohort B. They will actually be kind of reviewing, and we will always be reviewing and front loading every day to the students that are in class. There are some online Eureka video lessons that worked really well for us in distance learning last year. So those will be available to parents, as well as a our Zern program that students will be able to do when they are at home. When they are in class, we're really going to kind of not have them on technology as much. We want to save that those games, math games, ABC Math, and all those activities for home. We also will have 1 day a week a second enrichment. And we are looking at that as a PE, of really kind of breaking up. So we'll have 15 kids, breaking those 15 kids up to like an 8 and 7 group. So one group will have 20 minutes of PE with Coach Kinga, and then that other 7 or 8 will have our pretty much intervention program, math enrichment, give teachers and us just a little bit of individual time with those students as well. We will be dismissing at 11 o'clock to give plenty of time for sanitizing to take place before our next group of PM, TK, and K come in at 12 o'clock. And as you could tell, you could scroll that up, Dr. Cognetta, they really will follow the same routine as we do. In the morning, they'll just be in the afternoon, but they'll have their snack, their enrichments, and everything else that we provide. So again, that we feel very confident in what we have put together to ensure that student learning is taking place every day and giving as much support to our families when they are not with us. We will make FaceTime with the kids every day when they're at home. We want to ensure that that happens, and if that doesn't work for you on those times, you'll be able to review those recordings in the Google Classroom. All right, I think I'm done.
Thank you. So now I believe we'll hear from Ms. Lazo.
Yeah, thank you for that. So hi, everyone. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through this schedule, and I think everybody hit it really well that it's really a sample. So when we were putting our ideas together, we all took a really good amount of time to think what would work in our classrooms, and we're also very considerate of what needs to happen in the homes too. And the heavy lifting will be done, you know, so to speak, in the classroom. Mrs. Valenta hit that really well, where she said the front loading and reviewing would take place in the classroom, and kind of that just monitoring them where they're at. That was really important to us, and we put a lot of thought into that. So you can see in the morning, we're definitely taking care of that social emotional piece and setting our routines, because we want to be able, if students are able to, have that routine at home, and it will carry into the school as much as we can. So some kind of classroom activity, we all have kind of a little way, a different way to do that in the primary grades. But something similar would be at home that we could do that doesn't require kind of a face-to-face, but still that we can have an interaction to them. So that's why it says question of a day kind of at home, but just something where they're responding to us and we're able to respond back to them. In the primary grades, we still work a lot with phonics, and that's our building blocks for reading. And so in the classroom, we would call it word lines, but that's more of discussion of like our word features and spelling patterns and explicit instruction in those areas. And then you can see at home, they would take what they learned in the classroom and then be able to independently practice that at home. Fluency is also a key to reading in the younger grades, so that would be something they would be able to practice at home. That's reading with accuracy and how quickly they're able, their pace that they read with. If you're looking at our math, always in our teaching, we want to combine elements where it's possible. So obviously they would get math at other times, but if we're just looking at teaching a lesson, you can see here at school, we would review any problem sets that were done at home. That way we could provide feedback to them, ensure that they're doing the problems properly in a way that we've taught them to do it. At home, Zern, Mrs. Valenta spoke about that. It's a program that follows our curriculum very well, and it provides access to videos, so they're learning exactly what we're learning in the classroom. And then they would do that work. We would teach the lesson obviously with them, and then front load for the next day so that they would have kind of a knowledge base to build off of. When we talk about exit tickets, that's for us to kind of monitor and gauge how they're doing with the concept, so that we could look at it in the classroom and decide if they needed more practice when they go home with it, or if they're ready to move on to something else. Always snack time is important to us. And then if we're moving down to like our language, that would be like our written conventions, kind of like punctuation, capitalization. So we would teach that explicitly in the classroom. And then we had different ideas with how to practice that skill at home. And a very important piece of that would be to build stamina. Little kids, younger ones, they, you know, after 2 minutes, they're tired of writing. So we need to really build that up, and that's a skill they practice all the way into 3rd grade. So it really lends itself well to this model that they can practice for longer periods of time at home and build that independence in their learning and taking ownership over their learning. So we would teach it explicitly to them, and then they would take what they've learned in the classroom and practice that at home. So they would practice their skills and kind of be free to explore areas they're interested in writing about. And we would then, you know, it would be like a notebook that came back and forth where we could look at what they had written and kind of go over and conference with them. So review it and then again, provide feedback and what we'd like to see in that. Spelling, I'll speak specifically to 2nd grade. We use a program called Words Their Way, and there's a lot of sorts involved in that where they're learning specific word patterns. So again, it's another program that really lends itself well to this kind of model, in that their independent practice would be doing the sort activities at home, and then in the classroom we would actually discuss those patterns and be able to talk to them about that. One thing that was also very important to us was just testing. Testing would always be done in the classroom so that we can gauge and give a fair response of where they're at. And Ms. Lohoff talked about grading with integrity and accuracy, and that would be a part of that, is doing that in the classroom with us so that we can monitor that. Every classroom, fortunately, was built in with an enrichment period during the day. So different things would take place at that time. Maybe it might be intervention, but it also might be us jumping on live to meet with our home-based learners or our class that's not in class that day. So our, like in this case, cohort B, we would be meeting with them during this time. So, and that looks different based on kind of the models, but one of us would definitely jump in there and teach a lesson to them. If we're going down a little bit after that, just for reading, what that would look like, our younger guys still need really explicit instruction. So again, the same as kind of you saw in the writing, where we're giving those explicit instruction to them. And then when they go off and independent practice on that, they're building that stamina, they're practicing the skills that they're learning in the classroom, kind of, and then they bring that back and we would conference with them, provide them with feedback, kind of see what they did with the lesson. If we're looking at science and social studies in our primary grades, the reason why this one is combined is because we usually switch off units. We'll usually do a unit of science and then do a unit of social studies. So in the classroom, that looks like a discussion or projects, kind of much like we imagine it, much like it's been in the class. But before they get to class, maybe they're doing some of that, kind of building that prior knowledge is what we say. So looking up definitions, reading an article that we might ask them, and then we're able to discuss that in the class. And then any other kind of practice that they're able to do. We're fortunate enough to have a lot of our curriculum online, so they'd have access to that they could do at home. And then when they come into the classroom, we're able to discuss it. As I stated earlier, routines are extremely important. So there would be some kind of wrap up routine in that for either at school or at home, and just really setting those routines and making everybody feel like this is our community. This is what we do at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lazo. I believe we'll hear from Ms. Weinstock for 4 through 6. I believe that's true.
Hi, I was waiting to be unmuted. Hello, everyone. Ms. Valenta and Ms. Lazo, you've done a wonderful job explaining kind of our samples. Our grades 4 through 6, you know, did had the same thinking of prioritizing that we want really the heavy instruction to be happening in the classroom with us when they're with us at school. So we have kind of organized our day with wanting to start out with SEL. We know that this is really important right now, and we want to make sure that the students are kind of starting off their day in the right mindset, because we know that they have to have that first before they're going to be ready for any type of learning. So we definitely want to start the day with some sort of SEL lesson, building that into our morning routine. We also did this successfully during distance learning and when we were in traditional, starting the day with some fluency activities. So for example, in my class, it kind of just became part of their routine as kids were kind of hanging backpacks and getting situated and settled. Kids automatically knew to kind of either hit their math fluency or go into some reading fluency. So that's kind of a good way just to get students in the room and settled. And then, of course, once we've hit that, going into our SEL lesson for the morning. And then at home, our cohort B, we would want them doing the same applications for the fluency activities. And then we would set up an SEL that would kind of align with what we're doing in class. And this could be an activity through Seesaw. We're also working on setting up digital journals that they could keep, and that we would be interacting with them through that. And those would maybe happen through Google Classroom. Next, we want to do math. And we put here that we would do math and science. We definitely want to incorporate our science as much as we can during this time, if possible. So we would start with math, and the idea is very similar to Ms. Lazo's sample, that we would want to do all the like heavy instruction during this class time. And we even talked as just our 4 through 6 team, saying that if we can, because it's a good chunk of time, if we can try and get in multiple lessons, it would be great. And then once they've learned the lessons at home, they would be doing the problem sets and homework pages independently. And then we also like the idea of having at home that they would work on building their own word problems, doing kind of a problem of the day. And then when they come back to class, we review the problem sets. We like the exit tickets as well. They're a great gauge on seeing if students understood the lesson from before. And then, of course, then moving into the next lesson or even reteaching if necessary. So that would be our math time. And then we have snack. And then this time we said ELA, and we could also incorporate our social studies. This primarily we talked about being kind of our writer's workshop time. The way writer's workshop is really set up is that it's kind of like a mini lesson. And then students do a lot of writing during this period as well. So our thinking was that we would have these mini lessons and that we would build our students, just like Ms. Lazo said, with the stamina to do some of the big chunks of writing when they're at home in cohort B. And then that would give us time in class to really set up student conferences and work with them more one-on-one to check in with their writing. So for the ELA time, doing explicit lessons, adding or helping through journal entries, teaching our mini lessons, doing student conferences. And then at home, they do a lot of writing in a writing journal. So hopefully having that kind of come back and forth, doing independent reading activities. We use Read Theory and ReadWorks. Read Theory is for fluency, ReadWorks is for comprehension. And then also we can incorporate Studies Weekly, which is our social studies. Then we would have lunch. This, just so everyone knows, this sample is actually based off of the 4th grade hybrid schedule. So this isn't really what the 5th and 6th grade schedule looks like. We just wanted to take one just to get a sample. So that's why we wanted to leave it a little bit looser, because they're obviously going to have to adjust based on their enrichment schedule. So this is what our the 4th grade enrichment would look like. And then we wanted to leave some of this time in the afternoon to go back and look. We could either incorporate more math or ELA, or kind of review from before. This would be a great time for reteaching, intervention groups, more conferences. And then at home, our students could be working through lessons on Khan Academy or Zern. And then we also felt it was really important, the wrap up at the end of the day, especially because it'll be a day in between seeing our students, having another SEL discussion, either a closure for the day, reflection, or even hitting back on the morning SEL that we did. And then our students at home could do a journaling activity, and then agendas, reflections, getting them ready, front loaded for the next day, and what their day will look like at home, and then when they return. So that's that.
Thank you. So we'll take a look. Thank you, Ms. Weinstock. Yeah, we'll take a look at middle grades by Mr. Shipes. And that'll take us to our deep dive into possible or sample hybrid schedules. Take it away, sir. I think you are unmuted. Or not. There we go.
Okay, there we have it. All right, so if you look at the middle school schedule, you'll notice a little bit of difference there with the way we start our day. This year we had built it in. We wanted to have PE first thing in the morning, kind of get the juices flowing, wake them up a little bit, which is very good for the middle school kids. Then they will go in for the next 4 periods, they'll go into their core classes. So if you look at the core classes, they'll get direct instruction, and we'll do some stuff through Google Classroom. For the cohort B that's at home on those days, so that they'll have stuff that'll be assigned to them. If you look at the math, you'll notice that the direct instruction is virtual. So every day of the week, math instruction will be done so that the students are all getting the same content, because it does kind of build upon itself each day. So it's important that in middle school that they get the math 5 days a week. And the class time, while they're at school, we will be checking work. We'll be doing those types of things that we would normally do in a classroom environment. Fortunately for us in science and social studies, all of the kids are familiar with our Discovery Ed. So on those days when they're at home, there'll be more focus on those types of assignments where they can do independent work in social studies and science. Math, it's really they're with their math teacher during the day, whether they're at school or not. With social studies, there are a lot of different, language arts. There are a bunch of other tools that we use, like class time, Wordly Wise. There'll be some grammar and some independent projects, literature circles, which most of those lend themselves very well to being done at home. So it works out pretty well in middle school. We had pretty good success with the distance learning last year with the kids staying on top of things. And I think in the hybrid model, it's only going to be better if we're doing the hybrid. So if you could scroll down, Sebastian. Then of course, after we get through their 4 core classes, with a little break for nutrition in between there. After they get through, then they'll have a lunch period. All the way down, please, Sebastian. Then we built in, this is where we really kind of changed up some things this year in the middle school schedule. Last year, we had those kids in 8th grade who took Math 1. They're more advanced in the math. They had to come in for a 0 period because we had a very small percentage of students. This year, we anticipate a larger percentage of students that will be taking the Math 1. So we wanted to build that into the school day. So those students would receive their math 5 days a week with instruction during the school day, not 0 period. And during that time, the remainder of the 8th grade students would be taking some form of intervention or enrichment in math, and we've added reading this year. So we're adding that because we know that there was a need in math and reading, not just math. Last year we weren't able to offer it because we just didn't have the time in the school day. So we've had to make some changes to fit that in. But for the hybrid, and if we go to the distance learning, it works out better because the kids will get more face time with their teachers. Then they will get their normal STEAM class, their Spanish, and their music. The one area that we had to cut down on a little bit this year is in the wheel. We'll still have coding, financial literacy, digital literacy as our offerings, but that will only be 2 days a week instead of 4 days a week, due to the fact that we wanted to add the interventions in there and get the Math 1 into the school day. Then if you look at the bottom from 2:30 to 3:05, that would be where the 8th graders are going to their music, their wheel, and those types of things, while the 7th graders are getting their intervention time or their enrichment, math enrichment time. And again, they would have intervention available not only in math, but they would have it in reading as well this year.
I know, Mr.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you. I know you had a little bit more information here. Some of it you may have shared, but is there anything on here? Yeah, I think you shared a lot of it, but just didn't want to skip this.
I just wanted to put that on there so people could see, because I know, I get the rambling on here. If you have something in writing, you look at it. So all middle schoolers in summary would have PE to start their day. Math 1 for 8th graders will be taught during the school day after lunch, Monday through Thursday. Well, then on Friday, everybody will be getting some form of instruction. Touch upon that a little bit. We as a grade level, we decided on Fridays, we wanted the kids to all get the distance learning end of things, the virtual learning, because we wanted to make sure that they had some time during the school week where their whole class is together to try and add a little bit more inclusion. It's actually an idea we kind of gleaned from 4th and 6th grade, 4th through 6th grade. They had that in their ideas. So we kind of borrowed from that a little bit, but I think it's a great idea. Students who aren't taking Math 1 will receive math support, reading support, or enrichment during the time the other kids are taking Math 1. And for 7th grade, I mentioned that's at the end of the school day, Monday through Thursday. The wheel, I've already talked about, you get it twice instead of 4 times. And then PAL and yearbook will be held as a 0 period on alternating days. So that would enable 8th graders last year who had to make some choices on whether they got to be on yearbook or PAL or take Math 1. It would allow them to participate in any and all of those if they choose, which I think was a nice addition this year.
Great. Thank you for that, Mr. Shipes.
Yep.
And Mr. Weinstock, Ms. Lazo, Ms. Valenta. As you can see, that quite a bit of thought went into what potential hybrid schedules would look like. And again, because hybrid represents the greatest change out of anything we've operated and put in place before, that's where a bulk of the kind of work has gone lately. So we wanted to make sure you took a look at it. We know it's a lot, but we want to make sure you got a sense of what the day would look like for children, whether they're at school or at home in that particular model. So Ms. Weinstock, I believe this is you again, right? You're going to share a little bit about social emotional learning?
Yes. All right. So we know, especially right now, that SEL for our students is really important. And we are working on building what will work best for our hybrid situation, being in class and when the students are at home. We're kind of breaking our SEL. We're looking at it kind of in 2 ways, in 2 parts, and how it's being developed. We know that students have been through so many transitions over these last few months and so much changes and a lot going on. And so we know that's a lot to process. And we want to make sure that we're offering strategies to help them kind of go through all that and know that it's okay. So of course we're working on COVID response and strategies to kind of help them talk about it and find a safe place to know that we want to rebuild that resilience and know that if they're not feeling okay, that we validate those feelings. And so strategies to help them work through some of this. So we're kind of doing that piece. And then we're also continuing to strengthen the SEL work that we have already kind of started to put in place. Many of you have seen or familiar with our zones of regulation, but that really is just a piece of what we're doing, and we're continuing to build on that. So what we're working on, or what we want to focus on, is community building, building relationships, and increased access to mental and wellness resources. We wanted to create SEL lessons and activities that could be incorporated weekly by grade level teams and across our staff. So we organized it actually around our ASA Wolves Ways. So if you're looking at this table, we kind of matched some of the Cassell's competencies with our Wolves Ways. So if you're looking here, we have stay on track, keep your den clean, trust your instincts, how with your friends, be a leader. And under each Wolves Ways is a kind of a concept or skills that we would want our students to kind of focus on. So for example, let's say fourth grade gets together and we collaborate that we want to do a weekly focus on one of the Wolves Ways. So the idea is that it could be easy to rotate through for students and teachers. You would pick a Wolves Way and kind of move through them each week. So let's say fourth grade decided to do how with your friends. If you're looking, this would be relationship skills. So maybe our fourth grade team would decide if we want to work on communication, social engagement, relationship building, teamwork. And our team is actually working on what this would look like, activities that could be within each of these skills. For example, even in social awareness, let's say we were working on empathy, we could talk about role playing and planning perspective taking in ways that students are involved in, like a role play or a scenario where they're having to look at different perspectives. So this is leaving a lot open for our grade level teams to kind of collaborate on as they decide which skills they want to work on. But this is kind of how we've decided to formulate it right now.
Thank you. So yeah, Ms. Lohoff and I will talk a little bit about just some additional supports. The goal in any model is daily contact interaction with students. So as you see, and I know it's a lot, it's like drinking from a fire hose, what you just experienced, but if you were looking for sort of what is true no matter what and what model or what schedule, you do see that even when kids are home in any capacity, there's interaction with staff, with teachers. And so we'll have ways of monitoring attendance for both on-site, which is typical attendance, and virtually as well. And as we do have, pretty dedicated time slots when kids are home, and how that ties to what's happening at school, know that there is flexibility. So we know that if your children are going to be home, they're sort of at the mercy of what the home schedule needs to, provide for them. So we know that that's not going to always match for 100% of our kids, going to match the school day that we've created. So there's flexibility. Of course, as much as possible, we want kids when they're home to be involved in the live interaction that's happening virtually. If that's not the case, there are ways like we had in the spring where if they're able to view back the recording of any live instruction, then or participate in any of the schoolwork, then attendance, they'll be counted as present. So there are pieces built in to be flexible for families. And yeah, our goal is then again to be in close contact regarding absences so that we know we can ensure we're getting kids what they need, and you're aware of, of your students' presence and absences from school. We'll have a way, and we'll reach out if we see frequent absences, and in this threshold of 3, we'll be connecting to make sure you're getting what you need, and so on. We were fortunate enough in the spring when we were in 100% distance learning that we had a really strong attendance rate. And that really took, home and school collaborative effort, tons of effort on the home's part. And so we know that that's what entailed. And I'm grateful that, while I was talking to school leaders about them trying to crack the code on getting over this 30% attendance that they were experiencing, we were always around 90% as a school. And given the circumstances, that's pretty extraordinary. And that really is a credit to the home as much as it is, the hard work of our team. So we want to build off of that, right? If we find ourselves at home in any capacity. And one of those things is being in communication with one another about what's going on and making sure you're getting the things you need so that your kids can learn in those, away from us. We will make a dedicated effort towards English language development. There will be dedicated instruction on-site and virtually for those students who require it. And when we use the term dedicated in the context of lessons, know that what we're talking about is that there will be set times in which English language development will be explicitly taught. We also do a nice job of incorporating rich vocabulary and academic language instruction just throughout the day, which also supports English language development. That'll be an additional kind of focus that you'll see in any of these models. In regards to special education, and we're aware that for many of our students, a distance learning or hybrid model is not optimal for them. They benefit and really from the close contact. So we know that we're continue to look at the ways to make the most of providing special ed services. We're exploring ways in which, if we're in a model that does not allow kids to be at school, are there ways in which we can support our students who receive special education services outside of the box, right? And not have to rely 100% virtually. So more on that as it gets developed, but it's something that Ms. Lohoff, Dr. Moreno, and I are looking closely for if we're able to provide some of our special ed services in a different format. Again, if we can't be together, maybe there's a way in which we can do something differently for our special ed services. So more to come on that as things will allow, but know that we're working on that. It's important to monitor and provide interventions, and being away from kids doesn't change that. So there are systems in place so that we can keep an eye on who's at our reading levels that we're expecting at certain benchmark points in the year, and ensuring that communication is strong from school to home and home to school. And again, none of these models get us off the hook of what we're responsible for in monitoring our students' progress and intervening when they need more support. And we're not looking to take a moment off or to take stuff off our plate. We're looking at, for all the things that we're responsible for, doing them regardless of which model we're in. And that's why you see that the schedules are busy and the content has been pretty dense so far. Ms. Lohoff, you want to add anything here? If you mute yourself, I have to go find you and unmute you. It looks like I do. Give me a moment.
All right, there we go. No, actually, you covered it very well. I just want to speak back to our special education. We are giving it a lot of consideration, and although it went really well in the spring, we already have plans in place to improve and step that up a bit. So in increasing our think tank staff, we are making sure that there is additional support for those students. And so I just want you to all understand that every consideration is being given to those kids who need intervention, the ELs, and our special education, all of those subgroups that may feel additionally challenged. We're there to overcome them for you.
Thank you. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about, now that we've kind of looked at sort of the academic and social emotional component, we want to switch gears into just some of the safety precautions. So we know each of these represent a drastic change from what we're used to when it comes to school. So one of these is, one of these pieces is an ask of you at home, and then the other one is something that you can expect here at school. So at home, we strongly encourage you to check for temperatures and not send your child to school if they're over 100 degrees, their temperature's over 100. Because we will be checking them at school as well, we will be pretty vigilant on this and on making sure that we're keeping anyone, staff or students with fevers, isolated from others. And for students, it means, we're going to need them to be picked up. So we ask for you to, to start this at home. Check, make sure they're fine, and do that before, they head out the door to us. Also, as we learn more and more about what symptoms to look for, to screen for those, shortness of breath, coughing, so on and so on. These are just the efforts we're asking for everyone, as we know, we're asking a lot of one another when we come together. There's a lot of us together on a campus. As much as we'll put measures in place to keep people separate, we are talking about either 405 or 810 kids being in a relatively small space together. So we need everybody to do their part and help ensure safety there, and so on. So and know that attendance is not a focus. I know it's important for under different times. We would tell you, figure out a way to get your kid to school every day. It's important that they're there every day. Well, if they're possibly sick or ill, or we need to be thinking of the bigger picture and know that those absences will be allowed, will be excused. In the grand scheme of things, missing a day of school to play it safe is the right call, and trumps any sort of priority of perfect attendance. So please, join us in that. So at school, and here's a recent update. As recent as just a little over a week ago, our position, our guidance, and therefore our plan, our draft plan had that we were going to require staff to wear face coverings, but not students. Given the recent orders from the governor, that has changed, and all of us in the school setting will be required to have face coverings. We'll have some for you. We've ordered quite a bit of PPE, and we'll continue to be looking at getting more. Some of it is not reusable, and so know that we'll have that. So you don't necessarily need to send your child with a mask. We intend to have them for them. We don't need them to come with gloves either. We have gloves at any point if anybody needs it. There's no guidance that says we need to be wearing gloves for COVID, except under specific circumstances when we're cleaning, disinfecting, and so on, and that's not going to be our kids. So we will be conducting temperature checks. We've been watching best practices for this. We've had no touch thermometers. We ordered quite a few of them. They've arrived, so you'll see sort of on entry points on campus where we'll have people stationed to quickly take temperature checks. Should a student get there without an adult and have a fever, they will be isolated, and we'll be calling you to get them. That is what the times call for. So that's what that will look like. At this time, we're going to have to significantly limit access to campus for visitors. If you're there to help in one of the storage containers because you're helping the pack, move some things around and get organized, those are scenarios in which we can possibly see visitors coming and using the campus, but it will be limited. In fact, at this time there won't be any classroom access for visitors. Again, just in accordance with the guidelines. So we always, at the beginning of the year, we start off with just kind of making sure that the drop-off and pickup routine is clear and people are following it to make sure kids are getting to school safely and efficiently. Things have changed. We need kids to enter and be checked, so we'll have more entry and exit points. And I can just assure you that if we're able to be on campus in any capacity, it's going to be slow, it's going to be congested, and it's going to take some figuring out. So I just need everyone to have grace for one another, for yourselves, for your children, for other families, for us, as we've never done this before. Ms. Lohoff and I walked the campus this week and have been looking at what those scenarios look like. We'll put our best plan forward, and if it's not good enough, then we'll revise and strengthen it. But it will definitely it won't just be on us to make arrival and departure efficient. It really does take all of us. So it takes us enforcing our routines, sticking to them, and then you adhering to them. And so we'll roll out more information about this so that we don't have bottleneck entry and exit points. We have more than previous years. And so again, more details to follow on that. There will be some signage on campus, just to kind of remind everyone of the habits that we're trying to build. So, we know we're talking about the majority of the people on campus are under 12, 13 years old. And so we do a pretty good job of getting them safely to and from places on campus. There will be that much more attention to detail now, just so that we can ensure distancing and so on. But I'm confident that the way the staff works, that we'll make this happen. And so, yeah, there is additional health and safety equipment being secured. We're fortunate enough, all of our classrooms have sinks. So if they didn't have any soap dispensers, they will. We are looking for, for other additional sanitizer, and we'll have, a bit of equipment of PPE so that we have adequate equipment to open the school and run it for some time. And but these are just some of the pieces that will look different as we return to campus. Let's see. So an update, yes, in regards to face coverings. And again, as recent as, just June 29th, the executive order from the governor came out requiring use of face coverings, with the exception of eating and so on, for in physical education, if we're able to keep kids distanced, if that is, a reality for us. But again, PPE will be provided. There's not a need to provide gloves or even masks. The donations we're asking for, you'll see them shortly, but we do ask that the school issued PPE is for school only, and anything that needs to be returned is, and anything that needs to be discarded, should be as well. So this is a good opportunity for me to thank, the Office of Emergency Services, Chino Valley, San Bernardino County Office of Education, and for helping provide some of our PPE. And of course, we've been responsible for providing our own as well. So know that when it comes to face coverings, there are exceptions in the governor's orders. Those are listed in our guidebook. If there's a medical reason why someone should not, or there's risk, and then of course in moments when a kiddo has a bloody nose, of course we would not require a mask on at those times. And so there are exceptions to the PPE. If you have questions about it, do contact me and I'll be glad to help you. So I also want to take this moment, as there have been conversations up and down the state, from school leaders around, well, what do we do when we're requiring masks? What do we do when a kid doesn't wear a mask? And I've heard it all. I've heard do you upgrade your discipline policies because a child isn't wearing a mask? That's just not going to be our default go-to. That doesn't make sense. All of these things that we're navigating now, we're still trying to have a common sense approach to what's required of us, what we know is right to keep kids in the community safe. So let's just be real direct about masks. They're uncomfortable. Most kids are going to be taking them off their faces. We know, should I say most? Many kids will be taking them off their faces. We know that. My own children, are doing that because they're not comfortable to wear. They get tired of them. So our approach is not going to be, to instantly discipline a child because they took their mask off. Overwhelming majority of the times that they're taking them off is because they're uncomfortable. So we will graciously remind them of what's expected. We'll give them a moment to get away. And if they need a breather, we'll do the things that just make it common sense. I don't know how else to say it. It's going to be disruptive. Teaching when you can't see your person's mouth is complicated. That's why, teachers will be provided shields as well, but we know that this is going to bring its complications. What I want you not to worry about is, does my kid get in trouble because it was too hot and he took his mask off? No, of course not. The instance in which I can see us having a problem, a discipline issue, is when someone is intentionally being unsafe around others. That's not new, right? That's been true since before, we've opened with schools. So if there's there's intent to be unsafe and so on, that's a different conversation than someone, which is going to happen to every one of our kids at one point, needing to take a breather outside of their mask because they're just uncomfortable. So I just want you to know, I want to reassure you that when it comes to this, we're going to adhere to it because it's an order, but we're going to honor the exemptions because those are necessary. And we're going to also understand that it will be necessary for kids to take a quick breather, and what we'll do in those moments and remind them of what's expected, and go from there. So again, I hope that's just helpful, and how just our kind of disposition towards this will be pretty consistent. We're also doing it in the context of working with little people who this is by and large not most of their preferences. So we are looking at ways to make the entire campus accessible and what kids expect to be at school. If we're unable to, to follow the safety guidelines, then some of the on-campus kind of equipment may not be available. But our hope is to make things, like the play structures available for all kids. So, and then in regards to lunches, you will see a difference in maybe what we're accustomed to. Lunches and meals will the process from picking up your lunch and eating and so on. You'll see that some of the measures regarding distancing and minimizing the amount of surfaces that kids need to touch and all that will be in place. Ms. Lohoff, I think, did you want to add something?
No, I'm good. I'm just preparing for the next slide.
Oh, there you go. Okay, go.
All right. So as Dr. Cognetta stated, in addition to the PPE that's been, that we've managed to acquire from the other places, we did take a look at what we felt would be the things that we go through more frequently. And that would be masks. We would need student and adult sizes, hand sanitizer. We have a lot of that coming in gallon sizes. So if you are able to, we do have some refillable dispensers, but we are going to need more disinfectant wipes so that our teachers can help, particularly in between those times, or if we find that we've had to, unfortunately, remove a child from the classroom for any one of those reasons, that we're able to quickly attend to the areas in which they were located in the class. We could use some latex-free gloves. That's very important, latex-free, especially for smaller kids. The latex sometimes causes an issue for them. So small, medium, and large. And like Dr. Cognetta said, that's nothing that they're going to be wearing all the time. But in the event we do an activity or something that would require them, then we don't interrupt instruction and we have those items available. And I'm sorry about the traffic. We would ask that we, from 9 to 3, the office is open. So if you're willing and able to donate any of those items there, you can drop them off at the office even without school in attendance yet. Okay.
Thank you.
Now we are going to be having a parent survey come out, and we have received many questions in regards to Think Together. And if ASA reopens in a hybrid learning model, this is the question that you're going to be asked. If ASA reopens in a hybrid learning model, would you be seeking daycare services through Think Together? I want to make sure that we all understand. Think Together is a separate entity from ASA, but it will only be an option to current ASA students who are enrolled in either the hybrid learning model or the traditional model. In the event that we open with a full distance learning program, that meaning all students are home, Think Together is not operational. And if students are enrolled in the home-based learning program with hybrid, open, or traditional, and yet you have requested that your student be home-based, that also is not offered. And ASA will have to be confirming enrollment placements for Think Together until the traditional learning program can be implemented. So I hope that that will help you answer that survey question.
Thank you, Ms. Loha. So a few next steps. I'm going to ask that you do look at the reopening guidebook. It's will be emailed out to everyone. It will be on our website. It's already on our website as part of last night's board agenda. So if you're familiar getting to those, you should know how to get there. If you're not, on our asathrive.org homepage, if you just look on the left-hand side for the board link, you can make your way to last night's board agenda and the documents there. But to make it easier for everybody, we will be pushing it out, and you'll be able to look at it. It covers what we just shared, with some areas having greater detail than what we shared tonight, but consistent with what we shared tonight. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to roll this information out, because we believe on Friday, this Friday, we will be in a position to confirm what model will open in, and therefore we will be asking, for your commitment. Unlike your interest in the past, we're asking for your commitment to either the model that we open in, or if it happens to be, if it happens to be hybrid or traditional, I'll just be honest, is very unlikely at this time. And then we want to know if you're committing to the model that we open in, or opting for the home-based model. So that survey we intend to send out this Friday. And one more thing, and then I just kind of want to share where I think things lie today. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, so it's hard to say where we'll be, but I do want to kind of give just sort of my read on things based on what we see happening. Before that, I just want to share the importance of communication. A lot has gone into this plan, a lot of input that maybe the most amount of information we've come in the shortest amount of time to devise a plan. In some places, plans we've never done before, right? We've not run a hybrid school before. I've never lost confidence in this team. They turned, in the spring, they turned a classroom-based school into a top-notch distance learning school, and they did it overnight. So I know we're capable of putting a solid program in any model in front of your kids. That is not a concern of mine. But I do want to say that our team is doing this in a very uncertain time, right? We know there's an economical uncertainty. There's health and safety uncertainty. We've seen the politicizing of COVID, and we've seen that our kids have been thrust right in the middle of that. And we will not do that. We're not playing that game. We are going to follow the guidance and make decisions that are consistent with the guidance to keep our kids safe, to keep our community safe, our staff included, and do everything to get back to a traditional model as soon as we can, and supported by the data in our area. So you have our commitment to that. 100% of our staff want to be in front of the kids every single day. Nobody has said they have a different preference. When we dig a little deeper, we have people who have very real reasons why being in front of kids right now is not the best for their families, and or themselves or their families. And we know that's true across our community. We know we're very diverse as a community. We have a lot of different positions, opinions, and thoughts on the matter, and I want to respect all that. I'm not absent of that. I have mine too. But in my role and our role as your educators, we have an obligation to follow the guidance as it's given to us. So we will do that. And again, just to make it very clear, we want to be in front of kids 5 days a week. That's what we all signed on for, and that's what we're looking to get back to as soon as possible. So because I know that, and they've already started the strong opinions and comments and so on, and questions about what reopening could look like. This staff is going to be working hard to do the best for kids. And I'm going to ask you as a community to not go to staff with questions about, or concerns or comments about reopening. I would ask that those come to me. And the reason for that, and this is true for Ms. Lohoff, who's your principal, Dr. Moreno, who's director of ed programs, who are and other leaders across the school. Even them, I'm asking them to direct questions about reopening to me. They've got full plates opening school in whatever capacity in the next few weeks. So I want this off their plates, and I want to be the ones who's answering questions around or addressing concerns or questions or ideas even around reopening. Please bring those to me. All staff have been directed to send you to me if you have questions for them. So I'm going to save you the time. Instead of going to a staff member, just come to me, and I'm going to get back to you as soon as I can with an answer to your question, or whatever it may be that you're requesting. And again, I just want to be clear about that. Your staff has to be ready to teach kids. I don't want to put them in a position where they have to answer questions that they may not have been a part of the decision. So to be fair and to be supportive of staff and to make sure you're getting your questions answered, I'm going to ask that they come to me. And acknowledging that this is a very close community. There's a lot of long-standing relationships. We have parents who are family or close friends of staff. So I get how it would make a lot of sense for some of you to go right to that teacher or to that paraprofessional, whomever it may be. I understand that will happen. I'm not trying to stop that, but I've directed staff to send those questions and comments to me. So that way we can streamline communication, and you're getting your questions answered, and staff are able to do what they need to do the best job for your children. So I believe we are concluding our presentation now, and looking at the time, we're at 7:30. So we can give kind of a hard out by 8 p.m., no more than that, with any thoughts or questions. I will open up the chat box, and if you can use that, that will allow us to kind of navigate the questions in kind of an organized fashion. So let's see. Okay, I believe I've opened up the chat box. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and that means we are now in the chat box. Oh, did I share? I was supposed to give you my my thoughts on where things are, right? And just to remind you on how quickly things change. 48 hours ago, I would have told you that I'm confident we will be opening in hybrid because of just kind of where the data was, where the stages are, and so on. 24 hours ago, that changed. Many of you saw some of the large districts in the large districts in the state, including Los Angeles, San Diego, and then more and more have announced that they'll be opening in distance learning. And so my thinking is that we need to be prepared to open in distance learning, because that is becoming more and more likely at this time. Again, that means we'll continue to look at the ways in which we can support our students with special needs, who we know many of the services they receive are tough to deliver in that format. We're committed to that. But I just want this community to be prepared. I do think that there's a really good chance. 48 hours ago, I said I think it's looking like hybrid. Today, I feel like there's more and more chance that we'll be in distance learning. So by the end of the week, we're pretty confident that we will have the decision set, and that will hopefully give you enough time to sort of make a decision on the survey and prepare yourself for what August 10th looks like. So thank you again. I don't have a crystal ball. That's just sort of just reading how things have been working lately. I'm never confident kind of predicting what the future looks like that, but we're all anxious to know what the beginning of the school year looks like. So just hopefully that's about as clear as an answer as I can give. So Ms. Lohoff and staff, could you monitor questions as well? And then I'll do my best to answer them. So can our kids wear their own mask each day? Right now, our position is no, we're going to provide them. And we want to ensure that the masks that are being used throughout the day are meeting the guidelines, which require cleaning. And so obviously they're coming from home, that we can't control that. So right now, the masks will be provided by the school. If you have something to donate to the school, we'll welcome them, but know that if kids come with their own mask, we'll be asking them to put them away. And yeah, I'm going to unmute again, Ms. Lohoff. How do you, because she keeps muting herself. There you go. And she'll help with the questions.
It's because of my traffic.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
One of the next questions was, will students be allowed to bring their own lunch?
Yeah, we haven't seen much, and I know Ms. Margarita, our meal manager, is on here, and she and Ms. Lopez are Director of Business Services, and Clara, our meal team there, are kind of watching for the guidance now. I've not seen anything that does not allow a student to bring their own lunch. So I think much like with other personal items, we're going to ask for no sharing and things like that, of sharing items and so on. I think I can see that happening, but I don't see, Cindy, at this point, the need to not allow kids to bring their own lunch. Yeah.
All right. And if the governor lifts the mask mandate, does that mean that the kids won't have to wear one?
Yeah, that's a good question, Kristen. That's my understanding, is if the current order, which the governor has put out, that requires all of us to wear masks, if that's lifted, then we can go back to where we were a little over a week ago, with our plans to recommend masks, and those who don't choose to wear them do not have to.
How will you keep social distance in the classroom?
Yeah, so the primary reason for a hybrid model is because classrooms are not designed to social distance, to physically distance kids. We have class size of 30-1 in the spaces of just under 400 square feet, I think, around that. So the classrooms are not designed to keep kids 6 feet apart. So that's the primary driver for a hybrid model, is so that you can have more space between the people in the classroom. That's how we would physically distance in classrooms, in physically setting up space differently in class. In primary grades, we don't intend on using the rugs that kids sit on, inches apart from one another for some time. Those are some of the things that we'll do to keep kids distance if it's required in class. So that's
Okay.
that.
You ready?
Where were we?
Question is, will siblings be on the same schedule, same days at school, and same days off?
Yeah, you want to take that one, Ms. Lohoff?
Yes. So currently what we are doing is part of that survey that you will be filling out and sending back. It will not be asking you which cohort you prefer. However, we do want to make sure that you're identifying who your children are, and we're going to make every attempt to have families on the same cohort. Will hand washing be practiced with time allotted after each recess and lunch, rather than just hand sanitizing? You want me to go with that?
Yeah, so I was rereading the question. I want to make sure I heard it right. Will hand washing be practiced with time allotted after each recess and lunch, rather than just hand sanitizing? Yeah, you want to start off, Ms. Lohoff? And then.
Yeah, so we have already given consideration, and during our launch, which is when the teachers come back a week before school would open, we're talking about procedures and what that would look like. And we do intend to put procedures in place so that there is time for students to wash their hands prior to going to lunch, after they return from lunch, prior to going to nutrition, after their return from nutrition, unless it's being handled in the classroom. Hand sanitizing has been proven to be one of the best sanitation protocols we could put in place. So we are already talking about teaching children procedures for each classroom, and each time that that would be most important. Being asked, what is the disinfectant process?
So I'll interpret that to mean, because it means several things, but our custodians have received training on updated kind of disinfecting practices. And so from the cleaners that they'll use to the frequency, they'll spend a lot of time on surfaces that are kind of high traffic areas that get touched a lot. But just the simple aspect of it, there are new disinfectant and cleaning materials that we're now allowed to use, that have been introduced to kind of our tools, and there's greater frequency of disinfecting and cleaning than prior. So this is one of the reasons why we're using less. We're not using the rugs and so on, and then we're cleaning again those high use surfaces. We're reducing the amount of resource or materials that kids have to share. so that we can minimize that as well. But those are some of the pieces. Arlene, that's a good question as far as what it entails. And I can send you, if you email me, I can kind of send you the lengthier, not so fun document on it, but I know that we're adhering to kind of the latest recommendations there.
Quick thank you to those that are expressing their appreciation. That goes a long ways, and it's being read, and we do appreciate it. Thank you. The next question would be, would they be using hand sanitizers or hand soap in the classroom? They would be using both.
Correct.
And let's see, if we don't get any more PPE donation, will we have enough for the year?
So yeah, good question. And I don't know of any school or district or charter school that has enough for the year right now. I don't know if the state has enough for the year. So we have what we believe is possibly a 60 school day cushion, which is a pretty healthy place to be. And actually, we have some more on the way that looks like will arrive next week. So the short of it, thank you, Ms. Warner, is we do not have enough for the school year. We have enough for all of our students for what I just shared, which is maybe 60 might be stretching it, but definitely, let's say 40 days of school.
Okay. Another question. If kids are not comfortable with masks, can they wear shields instead?
No, I've seen different guidance on this, and thanks for asking that. Yeah, can they wear shields instead? Let me get a confident answer to you, because we're seeing different bits of information, and so I want to make sure I get you a correct answer. Because I can't confidently say which is required at this time, right? So thank you for asking that, and know that we'll get that answer to you in the coming days. We'll push it out to everybody.
All right. One of the next questions is, and thank you for your donation of PPE to the school. And yes, there will be a place coming out. This is to Patty Morales. There is a place that you'll be able to drop off donations, and you can start now from 9 to 3. The office is open. So thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Ms. Rena would like to know if for distance learning, will it be recorded? And will it be held against the kids if they can't be online live?
I thought you were going to take that one, Ms. Loha.
I can field that one.
Field that one.
So a lot of our distance learning will include recordings. And it will also include opportunities for kids to be live interaction daily. We are taking into consideration that not all kids can be online live for a variety of reasons. And there will be other ways of tracking their attendance. That will be through home and teacher communication. It would be through particular activities that teachers are putting in place so that they know that your student was engaged that day. So we are working on the details of that. There will not be something punitive if there's a live lesson taking place and your child is unable to be there for any variety of responsible reasons, let's put it that way. We do realize that not one schedule meets all students' needs. So we are working on the details of that. Did you have something to add to that?
Oh, that's spot on.
Okay, and will there be a daily lunch menu?
Ms. Margarita, we believe so, correct? I have not heard anything in contrary to that. The only thing that may be different is if we're in distance learning, we possibly could be doing the meals like we did once we closed in the spring. Other than that, if we're in school, I'm expecting to see menus for lunches, for daily lunches.
Okay, and the next one probably Miss Diana could answer. First off, to Paul Allen, if you're looking for an update for waitlisted children, please contact the office between 9 and 3. They can help you there.
Yes.
In the meantime, Miss Diana, should we move forward with a hybrid option? How is AM and PM schedule going to be determined? Do we already have a system for that?
But that only pertains to our TK, I'm sorry, our kinder. TK is
Our kinder, yes.
so in regard, so Lily, I want to make sure you're asking about K. Is that, if it's about K, what we do is we do ask for a preference for our families from AM and PM, but we make it clear we can't commit to their preference. We just want to get a sense, because if it works out where the preference can almost build us the rosters, and we do that. But if not, we go in sort of lottery order and place them into AM and PM slots that way. So in a hybrid model, so, and that's true in a traditional model for our kinder program. It's not just a hybrid option. Our hybrid school-wide is not an AM PM schedule. We know some schools and districts are using AM and PM. Ours is a day by day. There's a cohort A that would come to school Monday and Wednesday. There's a cohort B that would come to school Tuesdays and Thursdays, and all students are home Friday. That's how ours works.
All right. Here was an example in regards to masks. Aside from the example that was given earlier related to a bloody nose, what are some of the exceptions to wearing masks? And if parents do not want their children to wear a mask, will the student be permitted to be on campus?
So start with the reasons. The reasons, and they're included in our guidebook, but a person, so a student with a medical condition, a mental health condition, or disability that prevents them from wearing a mask, they're exempt from wearing a mask. So this includes kids with medical conditions for whom wearing a covering could obstruct breathing, or if someone is at any point unconscious and incapacitated, then or cannot breathe without assistance. Obviously, I'm talking about an emergency now. Of course, masks will come off there. So students who are hearing impaired or communicating with a person who's hearing impaired, where the ability to see the mouth is essential communication, that's a reason to be exempt from wearing a mask. Students for whom wearing a face covering could create a risk to the person related to their work. So if there's a risk involved that's different than the medical conditions or spoke of earlier, then they would be exempt. And then the last one is the example you used, the bloody nose and so on. So simply put, like, a preference is not really a reason. So I'm sorry, that's just kind of how we're reading the executive order and the exemptions in regards to masks.
Okay, I do need to make a quick announcement. There have been a couple of questions regarding admissions, particularly from some new neighbors in the area.
Welcome.
If you could please email admissions@asathrive.org, all of your questions can be answered there. The next question is from Mr. Crawford. How about social distancing during recess and breaks?
Yeah, so keep in mind, if we're in a traditional model, then there will still be some precautionary measures in place. But then if we're in traditional, that means all of our students are back on campus, and physical distancing is far more lax than it would be in a hybrid model. So in a hybrid model, we're already, by having half the kids in a classroom, half the kids on campus, we are doing our best to, in a common sense, way, physically distance kids. So we will reinforce, activities and games at recess that keep kids somewhat separate. They're children, their habits or instincts are to grab, hug, and so on. We know that. So we will explicitly teach the routines and habits to keep them safe. I'd be lying to you to think that just because we're just having this discussion now and there are signs on campus and so on, that it will be 100% effective. But we will model, we will teach, we'll reinforce, and we know that recipe is pretty successful overwhelming majority of the time. And I think you'll see this in the guidebook. There's nothing we're discussing here that will absolutely eliminate or ensure that we stop the spread of any virus. Our plans are designed to mitigate, to reduce, based on the best understanding that is sent our way. So we know that we don't have fail-proof plans. We have plans designed to reduce the spread, to mitigate the spread, and so on. And that's why it will take all of us to do this together. So I'd ask, and I appreciate you asking it, Chris. This is one of those things where we'll have to remind all students, in the age appropriate way, what is expected at school, right? Daily and so on, and in regards to this. So I feel for them. It's a steep learning curve. We're used to giving high fives and hugs and everything, and now we're building different habits. You and I, we probably experienced them, right? Like, you see someone, you're like, do we shake hands? Do we not? We know it's awkward and so on. So we know new habits have to be formed. We're going to teach, reinforce, model, all of those pieces, and hopefully that'll get us the best that we can, in addition to having fewer kids around in the first place. Yeah.
All right, Terry Chen, I just want to let you know that there is, this recording will be going out to parents. So if you missed the beginning of it, we did have some sample schedules there for you to preview. They are flexible schedules, of course, but you will be able to review that and have a better understanding. They're pretty concise. Thank you for asking. Another one had to do with PAL, so I can answer that very quickly. Typically, we would have done PAL opportunities to apply at the end of the school year, this being, of course, different. Within the first couple of weeks, there won't be a 0 period for PAL, and what we will do is push out to our 7th and 8th graders how they can become members if they so desire. So please just watch for that information. Oh, here was a question. What do we find challenging about distance teaching? Can I speak from a teacher's perspective?
Yeah, love that. And in teachers too, I know we have staff on here. If you want to speak, let me know.
The hard part about distance teaching for me was having this kind of a view with my students as opposed to being in the classroom. I connected, as do all of our teachers, very tightly with our students. So that's probably the hardest part. We can figure out the challenge of organizing, and we can figure out the challenge of lesson planning. But getting that face-to-face is what is challenging for all of us. Do any of the teachers have anything to add?
And I'm wondering if I need to unmute any of you. Let me know if I need to unmute you by texting me. And we can circle back to that too.
Okay, we can go back to it. How will car drop-off work with temperature checks? That's from Cindy.
So yes, we actually we know that some places on campus it's going to be walk up and they'll be checked. So that will be not the most efficient model, but when you're trying to get 400 kids on campus safely, it is what it needs to be. We are thinking that for our students who get dropped off on Oaks Avenue in our driveway, that we will check before they exit the car. And that way, we're able to do that in the driveway itself and then kind of go from there. So it's a great question. And can you imagine being in that line when, it takes long enough just to get a little kiddo out of the car? And we know that now with the temperature check at the same time, it's just going to add to it. I'm confident if we're in that mode, we'll hit our stride too, much like we do it at the beginning of every year, with just these new precautions as well. Anything you want to add, Ms. Lohoff?
Nope, you got it. There is a question, will there still be a day to meet the teachers, meet your wolf pack? We're working on it. Right now, what we're playing with is similar to when you dropped off devices and saw your teacher to pick up the final things at the end of the school year. We're trying to figure out how we can best do that so devices can be picked up and teachers can meet face-to-face or mask-to-mask with social distancing or physical distancing in place. There will be a Meet Your Wolf Pack, and there will be more details come out for that. How many kids will be in the kindergarten class?
All of our classes are enrolled at 30 students. If we're in hybrid, then that means up to 15 will be there at a time. If we're in traditional, up to 30. Notice I'm using the term up to, right? Because in any of our models where kids can come to school, we know we will have families opting they'll take the home study option. So because of that, I say up to 30 students or up to 15 in a hybrid model. Hope that answers that for you, Elizabeth.
And then the question is, has the staff considered designing grade-specific cross-curricular longer-term projects that have proven to be more engaging and motivating for kids, especially given the distance learning and hybrid learning options?
Yeah, it's a great question, and maybe teachers, I know hopefully you've been unmuted now and can speak.
I'll just share. Yes. I mean, that's just a part of our regular curriculum anyway. And we'd like to design, bring those projects that we do in the classroom to to any type of distance learning or hybrid learning that we do. Of course, it's at the forefront of our mind, and we want to be as engaging as possible with our students. And many of us have given up, a lot of our summer breaks to, consider these things and make it as engaging for our students as possible.
Thank you. Next question, is school going to record attendance if we're doing distance learning? And also, are all testings and homework then going to have to be online?
So in regards to attendance, I know we threw a lot at you tonight. We did briefly talk about it, so I'll kind of just revisit that real quick. But how's school going to record the attendance if we're doing the distance learning? You, by attending a live lesson, by revisiting that lesson later in the day once it's recorded and available to you, or by completing work on that day. Those all count, Carmen, as present for the day. And Ms. Lohoff, you want to add to that, or?
No, we're designing an accurate way to do that now, because we know that there could be questions down the road, and so we want to be recording just the same as our grades. We want to be recording the attendance with integrity and taking into consideration what those home situations are. I'm looking here. I'm looking. Some of these questions are now repeats. So, and I know that we've answered some of them since my scrolling is so much further behind. Will kids still have big buddies in some kind of fashion this year? Would one of the teachers like to take that? Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, if nobody else, I didn't do Big Buddy specifically in like the term that maybe some people are thinking, but I think we're always looking for opportunities for older students to mentor our younger students. What that looks like, I'm not sure right now, but of course it's in our minds.
And I know that just as a parent, I saw that Ms. Campagna and Ms. Harmer in distance learning did continue Big Buddies. They use Seesaw, which we'll continue to use. So for our new families, we'll push out a free app that we want you guys to download. It's one of the best ways to stay in contact with your teacher and your student's work, and for your student to stay in contact with their teacher. Far more intuitive than like clunky email and so on. So we know I bring that up just because I saw buddies, my daughter, who was a bigger buddy, to her little buddy, they did an activity where they recorded themselves on Seesaw reading aloud to them, reading a book to them, and then sharing it with them. So even though they couldn't physically be together, they were still doing, some ways, finding ways to connect virtually. So yes, I'd love to see that just kind of continue. It's a nice, definitely a positive in our school. There's a question around which, I'll share a little bit about, are the teachers more comfortable with distance learning? Why and why not? Cara, thank you for asking that. I know there's a lot of talk about, positions that teachers unions and, and teachers have out there. They're very much a part of this. They're the ones in front of students daily. And so we do need to hear their voices and hear what it is that they have to say. And so for our staff, I can tell you 100% of them want to be in front of kids 5 days a week. That's what I've heard from them. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that some of them didn't have very real reasons in which coming to school right now was not their preference. So as in my role, trying to grow an organization that takes care of its people, I'm listening to them. And they also know very well that a teacher's preference can't drive our model for 810 families. It won't. But at the same time, they will have a voice, and we would take care of any employee who, if we were in a model in which we're in front of kids and they can't be, then we will do everything within our power to take care of them. So the short of it is all of our teachers want to be in front of kids. Are they comfortable with it? Not one of them prefer distance learning to being in front of students. When we weigh all of the responsibilities, you do see different opinions between distance learning and hybrid, for example. But if I ask them, which I have to for everyone I've spoken to, would you rather be here 5 days a week with kids or in distance learning? Not a single one has picked distance learning as their preferred model. For some of them, it's necessary for their own circumstances. We won't go into that, but that's where if there's ever an answer that is about choosing one model over another and that not being traditional, it has nothing to do with what they prefer. They all prefer to be in front of kids 5 days a week. Again, some just have reasons in which that's not the right thing for their family right now. So I hope that helps, Karen. Yeah.
All right, and as we get closer to the end here, one of the questions I've seen come up more than once is, are these models that we are presenting decided by us, or do we align with CVUSD?
Yeah, so it's, we will align, but we also, we have, our community needs to kind of consider as well. And so our board has approved a framework for making the decision that is similar to Chino Valley's. But much like in the spring, there were similarities and there were clear differences in our models. Chino Valley and Allegiance closed on the same day, but on the very first school day after that, we were able to provide a distance learning model. That's not the same, for districts. They didn't have the resources that we were able to have due to our size and so on. So our models will not be identical, but there's a pretty good chance that if they're in distance learning, that's speaks strongly to where we'll probably be. Will we be on the same timelines? I can't guarantee that, but we're looking at the same data. We have similar plans driving our decisions, which is, the guidance, the resilience roadmap. So there's a good chance that we're going to be very similar to them in regards to which particular model we may be in. But I can't guarantee that everything is identical. I can assure you everything is not identical. I can't guarantee that timelines are, match perfectly or anything like that.
And we have one last question. Once hybrid learning begins, will you place students that are opting for distance learning in one class or place them into different classes?
That's, great question. And, our hands are tied in hybrid learning, right? You can really only have up to 15 kids present at a time. So we really can't create a schedule like that unless the math works. So I can't make a decision. We can't make a decision that says school-wide we would put in a hybrid model, all of our home-based kids on cohort B and all of our school-based kids on cohort A. I'll tell you, if the math worked out 50-50, we'd probably be putting those 50% who want to be there, they should be at school every day, right? But so far, the earlier survey we put out didn't work that way. So about 20% of the families, as far back as a month ago, told us that they would opt to home-based in the traditional, and a little less than 20% in a hybrid model. So the math isn't really working out for us to create schedules like that. It would require more than 15 kids being there at once if we were to do that. So what we've done is every teacher's roster has 30 kids like they would in a traditional school year. And then we adjust from there. But I hope that helps answer. The math would just have to work out for kids to work in that for what you suggested, which I really like that idea. But it's tricky to get the number of kids committing to one program over another to match that.
That would be the end
All right.
of our question and answer. I'm just going to place your email there in the chat for people to send their questions to you.
Yeah. And we'll hold on to all this information, take a look at some of the questions we missed, and make sure that they're getting out there. Again, we're not going away. We're available by email. Drop us an email with any questions you have. I just want to thank you guys. This was dense 2 hours. Thank the staff. I want to thank the staff for their hard work. They have not taken a moment off. They've really been going after this to make sure the best things are happening for kids. And thank you all. This is, there's no greater call for us to come together at this time, regardless of, how we feel about things. We have a reputation as a strong community, and everybody on this call and everybody, new families, returning families and staff, new staff, you are now, you're all part of that. So thank you for making this place as special as it is. We'll stay in contact. We plan on getting a survey out to you by the end of the week, the commitment survey, with more information on what the beginning of the school year looks like. You now have a description of each, and then you'll have the guidebook that will reinforce what we shared. And again, yeah, reach out to us with any comments or questions. We really thank you for this time. You guys have a great evening.
Have a wonderful evening.
Right.
Okey doke.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Law. Awesome job. That was a lot of info. And all right, we will close this out. Yeah, just remind me tomorrow when we meet, I will upload this to YouTube.
Thank you.
Nice to meet
All right. Bye.
you, everyone.
Good night.